you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet $50 on any game. Get up to $1,111 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Let's get to more of your questions. This one comes from Mitchell in Louisville, Kentucky. As I said, Kentucky, that's big Torres country right there. Now, admittedly, a lot of great Torres country across these great United States. Storrs, Connecticut is Torres country. Tucson, Arizona, Fayetteville, Tuscaloosa, Knoxville, whatever. Love all you beautiful small college towns across the country and some of you big college towns too. Anyway, enough. Here is Mitchell in Louisville's question. He says, Torres, loved the show. What do you think of UK as they get set to play next week in Canada? Okay, so for people who do not know, Kentucky is one of many teams that has a foreign tour this summer in college basketball, right? College basketball, once every couple of years, you can go overseas, play a couple teams, whatever. So UConn has one this year. USC with Bronny James has one this year. Kentucky's is a little bit different, though, because they are actually going to an event called the Global Jam, where they are essentially the United States representative in an international tournament. So they're going to be playing against national teams that have played together for years. And I don't want to focus too much on that event specifically. As an example, Baylor played in the same event last year. Baylor was a really good college basketball team. They went 1-4 in that event. So the competition is really good. I'm not going to focus too much on these games specifically. But in the bigger picture, I did think of something when it came to Kentucky for this coming season. That something is this. And to be clear, just to reiterate, everybody knows I was pretty hard on John Calipari early in the offseason, but I give him credit for rallying. But my thought in general on Kentucky entering the 2023-2024 season is this. Is this the first time, maybe ever, in the John Calipari era, that Kentucky's actually a little bit underrated coming into the year? Let me explain. Okay, so a couple things. One, obviously, myself, like so many others, I do those way too early top 25s. In my most recent one, I had Kentucky, I think either 13th or 14th, kind of with the idea that they added some really nice pieces late to the #1 recruiting class in the country. What struck me, though, I found very interesting, was other people who cover the sport seem to be a little bit more down on Kentucky than me. And I understand it hasn't been a great couple years, but we've been through it. They were a 2 seed 2 years ago. This year, there was one injury after the other. I'm not making excuses. I'm just stating a fact. But as I look at other people's coverage of Kentucky, it strikes me. I've seen a lot of people that in early June had Kentucky completely out of the top 25. And then even after, they added 4 players in the month of June. Antonio Reeves returned after whatever that was. He withdrew from the draft, but didn't technically come back to Kentucky until a few weeks later. They added West Virginia transfer Trey Mitchell. They added 2 freshmen as well. Even after they added those guys, I saw a bunch of people in the media. Well, now I have Kentucky back in the top 25. I have them at 22 or 19 or 23, whatever. And it's no disrespect to those guys. But you really mean to tell me that you believe that with 3 elite freshmen, really 5 really good freshmen with those vets, that there are 21 or 22 or 23 teams better in college basketball than Kentucky? I'm sorry, I just don't see it. And that's where it's interesting to me about the coverage of Kentucky. I understand that the upperclassmen are not elite. I understand that this is a sport that is getting older by the year. I also know what history tells me. John Calipari's best teams are teams that have super elite young freshman talent. NBA lottery level talent, not just a 5-star, not a top 30 player. I'm talking top 5, top 2, #1 player in America type talent. They have those kinds of freshmen with the right veterans. And basically, the beginning of the year, it might not be perfect, but as the year goes on, those freshmen get comfortable and they get better and better as time has gone on. And eventually, by the end of the year, Kentucky is good enough to play with anybody in college basketball. Well, how would you describe next year's team? I would argue they have by far the best freshman class in the country, with probably 3 future lottery picks: DJ Wagner, a point guard, Justin Edwards, a wing, Aaron Bradshaw, currently injured, a forward. They have 2 other really good McDonald's All-American caliber freshmen, both 5-stars, Reed Shepard and Rob Dillingham. And they have 4 really good veteran pieces around them: Antonio Reeves, Trey Mitchell, and the 2 returnees from last year, Ogana Kingsley, and also Adu Thiero. And so when I look at this Kentucky team, when people are saying they're a fringe top 25 team, do you understand how good these freshmen can be? First of all, with DJ Wagner, listen, let me say this, and I said it throughout the season. Kentucky in John Calipari's best years, not even just Kentucky, go back to the Memphis days. Kentucky's best teams had an elite NBA level lottery point guard. John Wall led Kentucky to an Elite 8, was the best team in the college basketball that year. Derrick Rose, if you want to go back to the Memphis days, played for a national championship at Memphis with John Calipari. De'Aaron Fox, Elite 8, one shot away from going to the Final Four. I don't mean to bring back all these negative things, Kentucky fans. Brandon Knight, who was, I believe, a lottery pick, gets Kentucky to a Final Four. So I'm not saying DJ Wagner is going to be like John Wall, Derrick Rose, #1 pick in the draft good, but can he be as good as some of those guys in college? I absolutely think so. I think he's going to be really good, really early, really fast for Kentucky. Beyond that, Justin Edwards, another 5-star. Many believe he was actually the #1 high school player in this class of 2023. Justin Edwards is elite. Justin Edwards competes on both ends. Justin Edwards is a guy that I think from day one is going to be elite in the SEC. And I know it's an older person sport, but who are the guys that we just talked about at NBA draft time? Brandon Miller was awesome as a freshman in the SEC. Anthony Black was awesome as a freshman in the SEC. So it can be done. And oh, by the way, Cason Wallace, when Kentucky actually put the ball in his hands because their starting point guard, Severe Wheeler, got hurt, was really good. So now you add those guys. Oh, by the way, Aaron Bradshaw, another guy that will likely be a lottery pick if he comes back. Early indications are he just had foot surgery, that he will be back in time for the start of the season. Don't have an exact deadline. We don't know, but I believe he's going to be back. So you add those guys with the veterans on this team. Antonio Reeves, and I've said it before, he's a very good college basketball player. He was one of the best guards in college basketball by the end of the year last year. He was a guy that had averaged 14 points per game in the SEC, had 37 points against Arkansas in the final regular season game of the year. 22 points in the SEC tournament against Vandy, 22 points in the first round of the NCAA tournament against Providence. This guy, it wasn't just one game at Arkansas. He was awesome the final month of the season. Trey Mitchell, veteran college player. Adu Thiero, and again, Ugana Onyenso Kingsley. Talent there as well. So listen, as far as next week's concerned, we'll discuss that maybe on next week's shows. But I actually think this Kentucky team is probably a little bit undervalued. Probably a team that is not getting enough credit going into the year. And I'm not making any promises on they're going to win the SEC, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Because listen, Arkansas is really good. Tennessee's good again. Alabama has reloaded nicely. Auburn is going to be good. Florida is actually going to be good with Todd Golden. He did a great job in the portal this offseason. Mississippi State's going to be good after making the tournament last year. But do I believe that this team has a chance to be as good as any of them by the end of the year? I do. And oh, by the way, do I believe this team is probably a little bit undervalued coming into the year? For the first time of the John Calipari era, I think the answer is yes.